research on challenging behaviors. For the most part, we've gotten better at acknowledging that when children hit, flop on the ground, or throw things, there's a reason for that behavior. And many times their behavior is a form of communication. By providing children with the ability to communicate about their internal state and needs, we're empowering them to get support from us. So there may be other things that we need to do to help the children learn to manage these behaviors, but things like reducing chaos and overwhelming noises, those things help asking children to take breaks or teaching them how to ask for breaks, and then use the visual supports and schedules. But functional communication goes a long way toward helping the child express themselves. And so thinking how frustrated you would be if you had to say what happened to you without being able to say what happened to you. And so AAC gives them that voice. So where are you on your AAC journey? Does anybody have anything in place?
I just have the Dynamax. So
how are you liking it?
Good. I also have the app on here, but we're starting to learn. Like, he learned how to ask for certain things he wanted, like a certain YouTube video or a certain, like, I want my milk. But now we're learning that we need to start like using verbs. Like, I want it, I want, and like you do, I do, and stuff like that. So
how quickly did you pick it up?
Yes, the last session we had, seems like he wants to do it, but we found like a light spinner toy he wanted. And so we were trying to teach off and on with like the lights. And so we just turned the light off and we're like, when we press the button after 2 or 3 goes around, whenever the light was on and he wanted it off, he said he wanted it off.
So it was pretty easy for him to pick up.
Yeah. And we started with picture text and went to the thing. And but it's just hard for me to figure out like what do I actually put on here and how to set it up for him. And that's where I'm at.
Anybody else?
It's amazing.
We use Prolo Quo to go.
And how do you like that?
We like it a lot, yeah. But my daughter's older, so I probably shouldn't give a session, but she's 12, but she's been using it for several years. And she's verbal, but her articulation's very poor. So my husband and I'm here because our family needs to use it more at home. She uses it at school, or if she goes to camp, no one can understand her, so she has this. But I feel like even at home, sometimes we get stuck, and it just gives her a way of, at least I know I can get my talker, that's what we call her iPad, that only has Prolo Quo to go on it, and I can find it, I can find what I'm trying to say, or if I can't, she can kind of give us clues to what she's saying. So it does, progress. It progresses from just like I want, or, to a whole language.
But they typically pick up at least the first couple very quickly. I mean, a lot of the students that I've worked with, literally, if you show them more, and you start with more, and you're doing a preferred activity, and they want more, they're going to utilize it. And I think some people are confused with, well, if I get them, an AAC device, then they're not ever going to talk, which is not the case.
It's started to try to say more words.
Yes. Well, and if you think about it, a lot of the research that I read, like with children with autism, they have such a hard time gauging everything in their world that having to manage words with tone and facial expression, that computerized voice is it's flat. There's nothing to understand except the words that are being presented to them. So, all right. So when should I get started with AAC? The earlier AAC is incorporated, the greater potential you have for improving your child's outcomes. And that's according to 2017 ASHA research. So every child has the right to communicate right now. I couldn't imagine not having the ability to communicate my wants and needs. I can only imagine how frustrating that would be. Parents often worry about getting in the way of natural speech, which is something we just talked about. But the science tells us the earlier you implement the AAC, the better it helps. And the quicker the development of natural speech occurs. So the research findings on natural speech and AAC tell us that AAC actually promotes natural speech and language. AAC increases vocabulary for children aged 3 and younger. It use with preschool children associated with increased use of 2, 3, and 4 word utterances and the development of grammar. And AAC can lead to increase in receptive vocabulary in young children and what they understand. And as an example, I go back to my classroom when I first implemented AAC in the classroom. I had a student who was 3 that was not verbal, and he picked up the communication tool we were using that quick. And he's now he's a kindergartner. He'll be going into 1st grade, but he's reading on a 3rd grade level. So there's clearly some links between having that early AAC development of vocabulary and the ability to read, because now they're seeing, it's print rich too. So just remember that talking is much more efficient than using any form of AAC. If a child can speak, they can be understood, and they will do so. AAC is hard, and so if a child can communicate, they will communicate to the best of their ability, because it takes a lot of work to go get your talker and push in what you want when you could just say it. So it's definitely not something that's going to keep a child from talking. So in a recent study, 94% of the children that were studied, they found that it increased speech production in these children that were using AAC. 94%. 6% didn't increase, but they didn't drop either. There was 0 decrease in speech in these children, which is probably the number one reason why people are reluctant to use AAC is they're afraid that it will hinder natural speech, and the research just does not support that. It supports the other. So when you came in, this slide was up. And think about some routines that you do with your children. These things happen every day. And so they're opportunities to repeat the same sentences and phrases over and over again. So using a communication board, think about the things that you do on a nightly or daily morning basis to get your child ready for bath time routines, for mealtime routines. What message are you able to communicate using this board? Use the bathroom, I want to read a book, but the rest of it probably doesn't apply. This kind of communication board is the one we used to offer to children. It seemed like a good idea as a way to request things, but it really wasn't a good way to continue that communication, to build that vocabulary. So now we can try again with this one. There's a lot more on here. This is a Saltillo 96. How did that go? A little overwhelming. Can't find the words. But you have more words available to get your message across. And that's the other thing I think with AAC is a lot of people feel like we should only present 1 word or 2 or 3 words at a time. But the kids, they're the ones that pick it up. The adults are the ones that have the problem. It's harder for us to learn the boards than it does to children, because they're the ones that want their needs met and they want to communicate. So this one you can say time for bed, you can say come take a bath, turn on the water, you want more.
What was the name of it again?
This one is a Saltillo 96 location board. And I did bring, and y'all are welcome to them if you want to take them. There are, I brought 5 different examples of boards that you can take with you, because not all communication core word boards are right for everybody. So I bought examples of different kinds from different places. All right, so any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
I have a 22-month-old that's nonverbal.
when you say it's okay to use with like children 3 and under, at what point should I start like getting the referral for speech therapy and starting the process?
If your child's peers are able to speak, that's would be the time that I would start seeking out.
I'm just assuming based off milestones, he's not in daycare or anything, so.
Now, the earlier the better,
Okay.
because the sooner you can get something in place, the quicker your child will catch up. The
Okay.
longer you wait, the further behind they fall.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about a child that has visual impairment?
They make boards for visual impairments. They're the high
So is that
contrast
different
board.
than AAC? Or it's the same thing, but it's just a different type of
It's a
board?
different type of board.
Okay.
A lot of the boards for the children with visual impairments are like, they'll have the high contrast, so they'll have the black backgrounds and, you can get them bigger, so.
Okay. Does it fall into also the eye gaze system?
You can use the eye gaze system,
Okay.
yes. They do have AAC that has eye gaze.
Okay.
Where do you obtain the different boards, I guess? How do we?
It's through the different companies. I'll give you some, and
Okay.
and there's resources in the back of the PowerPoint where it's got a list of
Oh,
everything
okay.
in here.
All right.
I know Dynavox does have an eye gaze.
Yeah.
Dynavox.
Toby Dynas.
Dynavox.
There's probably a lot of other ones, but I got the manual version and I knew that they had an eye gaze. So.
It's Dynavox. Yeah, I've heard of that.
All right, so, any more? Yes, ma'am.
I work with children with visual impairment. Some of the children are mildly visually impaired and some are totally blind, but from birth to about age 6.
Mhm.
And most of the children that I work with also have other disabilities, for example, CP, seizures, autism, Downs. And I work in several counties, and we are consistently running into a situation with multiple families who have 2 to 3-year-olds and 3-year-olds and up, where the speech therapist will not move away from what they're gonna learn speech. And there's a little boy that I work with who by age 5 still no language because of autism, no speech because of autism, only using gestures, et cetera. Mom got him like a VTech toy, and next thing we know, he's typing full words because he's really, really smart. That speech therapist still didn't want to do anything other than try to get him to do speech, and he's not yet said a word. Do you have any suggestions when the parents I'm working with run into roadblocks about trying some other methods other than just speech? Because those things that you've already discussed are exactly what we get told. Oh, it's gonna delay actual speech, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Meanwhile, you've got frustration and temper tantrums and it's awful.
And when you're dealing with other professional, like SLPs, I have SLPs that I work with that are, I don't wanna give them AAC, but, so I refer them back to the research. And I say, look, here's the research to prove why this child needs it. And if it were my child and it came between an expert SLP and my child learning to communicate, I'm gonna step outside the box and I'm gonna go somewhere else. And I'm gonna get, what they need. Because ultimately, as parents, we are their biggest advocate.
I feel like it's hard, and we live in Palm Beach County, which has a lot of resources. I think it's even hard to find SLPs that will work with it anyway, even though you're already using it. And what I would recommend to parents, I've done a lot of self-study. I know Prolo Quo to Go, but there's probably, Dynavox probably does self-tutorials online. Just have the parents do it themselves, because you're ultimately the one that's gonna implement it. So once or twice a week session with an SLP isn't really going to make or break your child's communication. It's you and what you're doing at home, and hopefully the teacher's on board at school.
And
I found a harder time at getting into school.
Really?
We're at a center school.
Really? Well, and I, as a teacher, maybe I think differently, but when I was in the classroom, I wanted to feel empowered that I didn't need that SLP in my classroom, which, 30 minutes twice a week, even in the classroom, there's not a whole lot of growth happening. So as a teacher, I didn't want to have to say, hey, SLP, come here and show me how to do this. And so that's when my journey with AAC began. I want to give these children, when I had 12 students, 10 were nonverbal, for whatever reason, and then 2 had language, I wanted them all to be able to communicate. I wanted a whole community of little learners that were all learning the same things. So when I implemented it in the classroom, I just gave it to everybody, whether you can speak or not, because it certainly can't hurt. Because a lot of, and you'll notice when we start looking at the core word boards, a lot of them are kindergarten sight words. So what does it hurt giving a 3-year-old kindergarten sight word? It doesn't. It goes back to my little guy that's going in 1st grade now, and he's reading on a 3rd grade level, who was completely nonverbal at 3 years old. So it
I run
definitely
into
hurt.
that too, though. The school systems are very difficult to deal with, and also they will squash it. Even if a child's been doing it at home on some level, they still want to try typical speech therapy, and they do not want to purchase any kind of devices to use in the school system, period. That's it.
But
End of
it is,
story.
they're like,
Well,
right.
I ran into the same problem you have with the school system not wanting to do it, so I use FAST. And I found it myself, I waited and I got it, I went and picked it up, and I learned what I could from the internet and used the loaned technology. And I brought it into the school and he was using it, an eye gaze system, and they're like, okay, I guess you're right, we'll go ahead and we'll get them on the trial here for the school district. And that's in Broward County, and I had to, it took almost a year and a half.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My daughter is deaf and has a cochlear implant, and it took me a long time. She's 24 now, so she's aged out of school, but it took me forever to get them to use the augmentative with her. They would not use it until she was in high school, fixing to age out, because they told me she couldn't use an iPad. She didn't know how, but then I bought one myself and showed them. So they did purchase a program and put it on there. It's Touch Chat.
Mm-hmm. And I
so-
have
and
one
so-
of those, that's what we, in the school districts that I serve, that's the
That's what
primary
you
one,
use?
is Touch Chat.
But just so you families know, my daughter aged out of high school and at her last IEP because they provided that iPad for her finally with the program. And I wanted her to continue on to an adult program after, but she still needed the iPad and communication device. And the school system did give that to her for free as she exited high school, so we still have that to use today.
Yeah, and Touch Chat, and I know only because I'm not selling their products by any means, but that's the one I'm most familiar with. The app itself for the iPad is around $200, I think, for the app. So if that's within your, budget, definitely an iPad with Touch Chat. It's easy to navigate, but
The only problem I found with the one from the school system is because they have that locked, and so you can't transport that onto a different device when you want one to send to school and then one at home, maybe that has other things on there that they use on their free time. And so I had to purchase the new program for a new iPad at home because you can't transport the school's free Touch Chat that they
Right.
gave you to other devices or to your cell phone or anything
Yeah,
like
'cause
that.
it's per
Take
license.
the device home though. School will let you take the device.
Yes, back and forth. She used it back and forth from school, but when she exited and graduated out of high school, they gave us the device for good. Yeah, and let us take it. Yes, with the program, but we couldn't put it on any other devices at the house, so we had to buy it again.
Yes, ma'am.
Mine is kind of a little bit different. Both of my speech therapies, private and school, they all for it. They work with my son on it. I finally get it for him, my Nova Chat.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is, okay, all the teachers try to support him, like Janet teacher and special. The thing is, the special teacher is been teaching him sign language, and he's real good at it. The Janets believe in Nova Chat, and they have a pro and con about, and every IEP meeting they fighting about refer for him to this better than that, and of course both sides have pro and con.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my son, I know that now that he almost 10, he tends to be like, will use device at school with his speech studies, but at home he refuses to use.
What do you use at home, sign?
Yeah, kind of like, broken words here and there, one like no, this and no, that, and pointing, and it's a combination. So when the teacher they disagree like that, as a parent, I make the decision over everybody.
Right.
That I provide for him board, offer for him board, and then see what he does, which one he refer. But I know that at home he refuses to use the device.
Well, and I know a lot of the argument in the AAC world with sign language is that not everybody knows sign language. Everybody can look at the board or hear the talker and use that. And I think that's there's still a huge debate, well, go ahead and teach him sign language. I taught my oldest son sign language when he was little, cause he didn't talk. But that was before the AAC world loomed, he just graduated from high school, so, but that's kind of where the two worlds collide, I think.
Because communication is two-way street. He can be straight A on a sign language, but the person he communicate know nothing but sign
Right.
language, you end like that.
Right.
So that's how I look at it. But the other side say, if you do sign language, you don't have to worry about carrying the device around and worry about the battery die and have it charged and all of that.
Well, and that's why we
Yeah.
started with the manual board,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. And did you,
I was just wondering, and it's probably, maybe you've already spoke about it, forgot her, but is any of these, programs covered under insurance, or? Okay, I see
that I
someone's
don't
nodding.
Mine was.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what insurance. I have CMS
Okay,
for my son, and we, as long as you have, like,
Eligible.
it depends if they do the evaluation good, you know, they have to justify it.
but
And if
now
they-
since
they
CMS
justify-
merged, WellCare is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got
And
mine with
these.
the merger with WellCare.
Oh, you did get
I
it?
just got mine, yeah.
And you got
and
the AAC?
Yeah, it was Dynavox, and it was like, when I saw they charged my insurance like $5,000. But honestly, on my iPad, I have the same exact app. Same exact stuff. It's a $50 app for the
I
Dynavox.
honestly don't care what they charge my insurance.
Yeah. I have the actual Dynavox, and it's good versus the iPad because it's louder and I can hear them in other rooms.
Okay.
But on it, like I even brought my iPad today in case like I just wanted to play around with it. But it's the same stuff on the iPad, and it is a $50 app.
What's it called, the app?
The Core
is it forward?
Snap Plus Core First.
Snap Plus
Yeah.
or first?
There are a lot of
Yeah, there's a lot
communication apps that are relatively inexpensive.
It's this little red one. Snap Plus Core First. And you can like take pictures of like general things or use like symbols.
And label them.
And there's like an AAC week, I think. I know it's
Yes.
far, it's in October, but usually all of the apps are 50% off.
And they just did one again too.
Or today, like
Mhm.
a half year.
What is it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Like usually the first week of October is like maybe the 4th through the 6th of October. Keep an eye out, but most of AAC, it's like AAC week, most of the apps are 50% off. So like we didn't propose we just bought it because we wanted to use it. But
Right.
it's normally, I don't even know, but you could get an app that was normally $250 for half off.
Yeah.
And you just do that by going in through the app store in your
And just purchase
iPhone?
it, and then it's your habit.
No, it was just my personal
And you
iPad.
don't have to worry about the school
But
district have.
If you get it like approved, you can
So
So I'm
get your
assuming
iPad
you gotta get on some of these ACC sites to know about it.
Yeah, I would just do research, figure out which one you want ahead of time,
Yeah.
and just be aware that it does go on sale occasionally.
Right.
They do. And they did it during April too, a week in April, the first week in April, last week of March.
Yeah, we had like our speech therapist, they had like an eval team and OT unit speech at the hospital, and they tried a couple different devices before they decided which one, and then they wrote it up, and it took like 2 months for it to get approved.
For the Dynavox.
Where are y'all from? Just out of curiosity. Central Florida? What?
Seminole County.
Oh, Seminole County? I don't think that. I was gonna say, what I do now is a regional assistive technology, and the small and rural counties get the benefit of having one of us. There's 5 in the state. Bigger counties don't have us. Well, they don't have part of our team, but a lot of assistive technology specialists, you can borrow, they can borrow the different equipment before it's purchased, and that's actually my job is to go into the school system and say, which one do you want before you pay $5,000 for a device.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
we had like a trial, it was like a month trial.
Yeah.
But that was through speech in the hospital.
Yeah, I'm in St. Pete, so it's through like all children's hospital, but
Yeah.
they.
All right, so a lot of children learn speech incidentally through the course of their day and their interactions. But if your child's not talking yet, then they probably need a more structured, specific opportunities for language learning. And so that's what we're going to talk about now. What I mean by meaningful activities is things happen every day. So during caregiving and family chores, those repetitious routines that we were talking about, that's the biggest opportunity for families to incorporate the AAC. And it usually just starts with one word. like want or more or stop even. But when you're using the AAC, you use the full sentence and only point out one word to start with. Then you add another word. And you have to give yourself a little leeway because you're learning it just like the child's learning it. And like I said, they tend to pick it up a lot quicker than we as adults do. So what you do does matter. So when you're thinking about this, when you're taking the child to speech therapy twice a week for an hour, that's really just a drop in the bucket, which is why it's important for families to supplement in the home, and that's why it's important for teachers to pick it up in the classroom. So if you want the child to learn AAC, you have to use AAC, because it's just like a foreign language. If I wanted to learn Spanish, I have to use Spanish and I have to learn it. It's the same, it's just another language. Alright, so the essential thing to know is that your child needs access to the robust language system. I think we've all know that they need some sort of language. And one that will allow them to be grammatically correct and make spontaneous sentences. So the first board we looked at was an I want board. Obviously that's not a robust communication system because really it was basic wants, and not all of them apply to 2 and 3-year-olds. So a robust language system needs lots of words, at least 300 core words. And when we talk about core words, those are words that you need to communicate in every day, every activity. When you talk about French words, if you're watching or learning about dinosaurs are obviously going to be a French word because it's not something you're going to use every day in every situation. And I'm sure a lot of you at this point would just be thrilled if your child could ask, I want a cracker. I mean, and that's really what we want them to get to, is to be able to communicate wants and needs. So you have to, when you're thinking about a communication system, you have to begin thinking about it with the end in mind. What is the end goal? And that's for your child to be able to fully communicate with anybody they come in contact with. So when you give children with complex communication needs a system with extensive vocabulary, you give them the opportunity to explore language and talk and talk about what they want to talk about, not just what they need. All right, so what is core vocabulary? Core vocabulary, depending on what you read, is somewhere between 250 and 400 words. The particular core vocabulary I started with the 3-year-olds was only 88 core words. So, and that was just the board that we chose to use. You saw the Saltillo 96 up there. That's 96 core words. So you want your core words to make up 80% of what you say. Most of them will be things like pronouns, action words, describing words like happy, sad, and mad. And fringe words, again, are context-specific words, so you wouldn't necessarily include those initially on a talker because you want them to get the core words down first. The things that absolutely, whether it is grammatically correct or not, they can still communicate wants and needs. That's the point of a core word board. So then you can begin to personalize once the children pick up the board with things in their environment and things they want to do and that they like to talk about. All right, so you want to focus initially on the message, not the form. So you want to respond to everything. You want all interactions. I had a teacher in a classroom say, well, he just said want Kit Kat on his board. And I was like, so what are you going to do? She goes, what do I do? Like, you honor that communication and give the kid a Kit Kat. I mean, they just told you what they wanted and they used their voice. So honor that voice. And so of course he went back and said, want a Kit Kat after he got a Kit Kat. And she goes, what do I do? I said, you might want to give him one more, but then I would kind of limit it after that and say, yes, I hear you want a Kit Kat. And that's when you have that communication with the child, because you have just honored what they asked you for. I mean, you have just given them the empowerment of a voice. And so you honor it. And I tell that to teachers all the time, if they tell you they want something or they tell you they need something, even if it's just one word, honor that communication. Whether it's verbally, whether they're pointing to something, even if they go get it, it's still a form of communication. So we want to honor that so that children understand what they're telling us is meaningful, and that we do get it, that they want or they need something.
I had to start honoring the word wait.
Yes.
After he realized he could get whatever he wanted all the time.
Yes. Yes. Well, if you think about it, as a parent, no matter what the ability of your child, when you're teaching them communication, I mean, we start as soon as they come out, talking to them and having conversations, even though the babbling is all you're getting, or maybe nothing at all. We're still having conversations with the babies. And so it's that whole learning those conventional rules of conversation, even with an AAC device. That wait, mommy's busy, So, but honoring and responding is what is important. So we want the opportunity for those back and forth interactions, and so that they are learning that this communication is a good thing, because now I'm getting what I want, and I'm able to interact with the people around me, and that goes back to, you'll see that decrease in frustration, that then the child's learning these rules that they would have learned otherwise, just in a different manner. So, and even if you don't know what the child is trying to communicate with you, make your best guess and respond. Don't just leave it open. This right here is the most important slide on the planet. And I think this is probably what some of the SLPs have issues with. I know it's what teachers have issues with. Communication is what we want, not compliance. If you're forcing compliance with an AAC device, you are setting it up to be, it's just not beneficial. You don't want to make a child do something in order to get what they want. You show them, you move on. If they choose not to use it, again, if he chooses not to use it, you move on. You keep using it, but if the child chooses not to, then that's their choice. You have children who choose not to do a lot of things that they're supposed to do, but you don't want to use it as
like push-pull relationship. Like push him and then she will do.
So a good communication partner shows the child how to use the device, provides and creates opportunities for them to use the device, and they interact in fun and meaningful ways, but they don't use it as compliance. Because the research has shown that compliance does not at all promote communication. So, modeling is one of the most important things that you can do for your child. Again, if they don't do it back, you still continue to model, because eventually, when they want something really, really bad, they're going to find a way to communicate it with you. And if you've been modeling using the communication device, using AAC, then they are going to want to use it. All right, so I hope you can hear this. One of those. There's no sound with this one, sorry. essentially the video was showing that when everybody got involved, Josie finally had language. But you have to model all day, every day. And in the interest of time, I'm gonna keep moving. So how do I model? And a lot of you, that's probably why you're here, is for how do I model? So you, like I said, you start with a single word, you target that word until the child picks that word up. And then you target 4 or 5 words, and you just continue to use those words in every situation with the device. So it's just like if you were teaching another language, you start with words, 1 word at a time, and you keep going. And you don't expect anything from your child at first except looking at the board. That's all they're gonna do, because they're watching what you're doing. And so you're gonna have to learn the board too, which is a lot of times why we as adults don't wanna do it. So once you've targeted the 5 or more words, target a new activity, build up with other words. And you pick the words, make it something that's fun, that the child's gonna respond to. We wanted to see how long it would take for a specific child to learn just 1 word on the board. And so myself and the OT took the child to the OT room, put him on a big yoga ball, bounce, bounce, bounce. Giggle, the child's giggling, enjoying it. And so we stopped. And all we did was model the word more, hit the word more. And so she goes, oh, more, okay. So, and that was, we did it. She stopped him the 2nd time, and he hit the word more. And she goes, oh, you want more? And bounced him again. This went on for 30 minutes, and he consistently. And so it's about that modeling, and it being, especially with the preferred stuff at first, because that's what the children are gonna pick up. If it's something they don't prefer, then they're not really gonna, wanna communicate with you too much. So you have to really observe your child and know what they're interested in. Again, use what they're interested in to talk, to shift the focus to their interest, not necessarily what you want to begin with. Make sure that you model, again, that repetition, just like with speaking and learning a new language. That's what you want with the AAC. And the hardest part for us as adults, because we want to fix it, we want to do it, we want to get it done for them, so is to wait. And if you can tell yourself to wait, count to 5 in your head, or I like to tell people to ask the question maybe 2 times and then wait. Because if you think children have processing issues with the language already, if you're asking a question and expecting them to answer that quick, well, you've already lost the opportunity for the communication, because they're processing what you said, and then they have to figure out where it is on their board to communicate back with you. And so create that time to wait. And it's so hard, because as adults, I don't like dead space and time. So I'm wanting to, okay, you want me to do it for you? Sure, sure, So we have to wait and give them the opportunity to communicate. So the 5 fundamentals for communication is to have lots of words available, focus on the message, not the form, especially in the beginning, model, 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 watch and pay attention to what their interests are so that you can join in, and that gives you the opportunity to be able to communicate, and then learn to wait. Create the opportunities, but learn to wait. Any questions? All right, so the next step is the resources. So if I need more information about AAC, there's a website you can look at, Explore AAC. If I want to see a child progress with AAC from toddler to kindergarten, there's a YouTube video. More examples of modeling, there's another YouTube video. And then personalizing the language system. That one is by Saltillo, but there's some for each of the different companies and the different devices. And again, the last page of your PowerPoint has the references from the presentation, and then other places that you can go that will link you back to AAC stuff. And I have the communication boards. Any questions?